Hello, in this class we are going to discuss about the next ratio, fixed asset ratio. We know a fundamental principle of sound financial policy is that all the fixed assets must be financed out of long-term funds. All the fixed assets must be financed out of long-term funds, and the short-term funds, that is the current liabilities, should not be used for purchasing the fixed assets. It shall be used only for working capital requirements. The fixed assets must be financed out of long-term funds. The short-term funds, that is the current liabilities, should not be used for purchasing the fixed assets because it will affect the working capital management. We usually use the short-term funds, that is the current assets are used for working capital requirements. In short term, the funds are used in purchase of fixed assets. It will affect the liquidity position, and it happens because the fixed assets will have to be sold for paying off the fixed short-term liabilities. If there is a necessity arises, the short-term liabilities have to be paid off, and once we purchase all these fixed assets are using out of the short-term funds, we have to sold all these fixed assets. It will adversely affect the business, and the fixed assets can be sold in most of the cases at a loss, and it is not a practicable case. And to know if this fundamental, that is all the fixed assets should be financed out of long term funds, this fundamental principle is followed or not, we use the fixed asset ratio. It is the ratio of fixed asset to long term funds or a capital employed. If the fixed assets are, or whether the fixed assets are financed out of long term funds, are measured by using this fixed asset ratio. The formula for calculating the fixed asset ratio is that fixed assets after depreciation. We take the fixed asset here after the depreciation, and it is divided by the long term funds. Fixed asset ratio is equal to fixed assets after depreciation divided by long term funds. The two basic components of fixed asset ratio are fixed assets and long term funds. The fixed assets include fixed assets after depreciation, and here we also take the long term investments in the case of fixed assets. And the second component is that long term funds. The long term funds includes shareholders funds, long term borrowed funds like debentures, mortgages, long term loans, etc. These are the two basic component of fixed asset ratio. One is fixed asset and second one is long term funds. The fixed asset includes both the long term investments and fixed assets after depreciation, and long term funds includes shareholders funds like equity share capital, preference share capital, reserves and surplus, etc. And long term borrowed funds, that is debentures, mortgages, long term loans, etc. The standard fixed asset ratio is 1 is to 1, and basically 0.67 is to 1 is considered as a satisfactory ratio. And the interpretation of this ratio would be a higher ratio indicates that the financial position is not sound. A higher fixed asset ratio indicates that the financial position of the business or the firm is not a sound one, and lower the ratio, the better is the financial position. This will be the interpretation of the fixed asset ratio. Thank you.